Namaste, everyone. This is Ariela Halevi, and I am a master healer here to talk to you today about ancestral wisdom and how do we live a sacred life in a chaotic world through the healing of our ancestors. So often, I actually did this video because I was giving a talk, I don't know, a few weeks ago on healing with your ancestors. And one of the things that a couple of people said in my discussion in the question and answer was, how do I heal with my ancestors if I didn't know them? If I only really have stories or know my parents and my grandparents and maybe my great grandparents, and I really don't know how to gather the information of my ancestors without knowing who they were, how do I actually heal with the ancestors? And I thought that was a really great question for people that don't truly understand or know how to heal and live a sacred life based on ancestral wisdom and ancestral healing. And so today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to live a sacred life while healing with the ancestors, right? Because they want us to heal. And so I would start by saying that one way to, the whole thing is an intuitive process. And one way to gain information about your ancestors is to begin to start asking questions. And I'm going to get to how to live a sacred life in a moment. But first, I want to talk about how to get information from our ancestors in order to heal our lives. So some of the process, as I said, is intuitive. And so I always suggest when I'm working with people or when I'm giving a talk, grab a little notebook, get some paper and jot down. If you don't have a family tree, if you don't know, your history, I'm lucky. My father is a genealogy buff. So I have a huge notebook, few of them, full of information on both sides of my family. But that doesn't mean that I know their behaviors and the medical conditions and the beliefs that they have. All I have are the dates they were born, where they lived, and who they're related to. So we all have to do some investigating for ourselves to understand where we came from and why would we want to go back there. And so my first step in helping somebody is to always intuit what are the patterns and the behaviors that have been passed down to you from your previous generations. What are the things that stick out that are spotlighted for you when it comes to kind of looking at the behaviors and patterns of your relatives? So for example, I have thyroid disease. I'm on thyroid medication. My daughter has thyroid issues. My mother had thyroid issues. My grandmother had thyroid issues. I don't know if my great grandmother or my great great grandmother had thyroid issues, but I can intuit that somewhere along the line, somebody started having thyroid issues and it was passed down. Now, again, if you don't know, like I know on my dad's side, there's heart disease in my dad's side of the family. There's also alcoholism that goes way back. And so I can intuit that there are alcoholic behaviors and tendencies on my father's side of his family. And I can intuit that in thyroid disease, there's an energy and emotion to every disease, right? So if you know that your great grandmother had cancer and, think about breast cancer, often that travels in a family. What are the energies and the emotions related to those illnesses? That's where I would start first. You can start intuiting. How do you know, what can you think about in terms of the behaviors and emotions around thyroid disease? Well, thyroid disease is in the throat chakra. So often when people have throat chakra issues, they have issues with speaking up, with speaking out, with protecting themselves, with respecting themselves, speaking their truth. So I can intuit. I mean, I know the history of some of the women in my family, but I can start intuiting and listening to the stories that were told to me about people, women in my family. You can also think about, as you're kind of gathering information, you can think about not only behaviors, energies, and illnesses, but you can also think about what were the times that they lived in. If you are a great niece or great granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor, you can know for sure that there will be starvation issues, trauma, some hanging issues. Like there are so many issues, right? There's war, there's famine. People have lived in pandemics. So you know for sure that your people, even if you don't know them, your people have gone through pandemic, have gone through war, have gone through famine, have gone through the Great Depression, things like that. You know basically where you know basically where your family is from. You can intuit, and you know, if you know some history, you know what happened during those times. So imagine the behaviors and energy of a pandemic, right? I've talked about this before. And you can imagine what they went through because you have gone through it too. So how do we get that information? We got that information. We understand that behind every illness there's an energy and there's an emotion. And then how do we move forward? Because if these things are affecting us today, right? If you have thyroid disease, for example, and you know that you have a hard time speaking your truth, then you want to heal from your ancestors. You want to heal the reason why you have a blocked throat chakra. You want to heal those hardships, and you want to heal the past, because the past is directly affects your present and your future. As I've said many times, when we heal our past, we can heal 7 generations down our line. So how do we live a sacred life in chaotic times and heal with our ancestors? This is like a huge passion of mine. It's something that I do often when I'm working with private clients and in groups. And I would say the number one thing that I always say is that you may have physically come from, you may have the DNA and some of, the DNA of your great, 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 great grandparents and beyond. But that does not make up your history, the history inside of you. That does not determine who you are or who you will be, or who your family members, who your kids and their kids will be. Woo, I was getting so excited I dropped a cup almost. What determines who you will be is your soul. To live a sacred life in chaotic times means that we have to heal the past and the wounds and the old beliefs and the illnesses that are passed down through epigenetics. But epigenetics teach us that we have the ability to heal and become who we are supposed to be. And so to live a sacred life is to also honor and bow to where we came from physically, but not to bury ourselves inside of their stories. And so if you are burying yourself inside of your history, inside of your genetics, inside of your ancestors' stories, then we need to ask the ancestors to help you to live a sacred life and heal and live the way that your soul is meant to live here. How do we do that is a little bit of magic and a little bit of deep diving. And the best way that I know how is to, I like to create I like to create a bundle, right? So this is kind of metaphorically, but in some circles, I have actually created the bundle. And what I do is I first write out all of the beliefs and the behaviors and the issues, the illnesses, whatever's going on in my own body, in my own family, right? What are those 2-3 things that you're really struggling with? And ask yourself, where does it come from? And you might have to do a little intuition, a little digging, a little asking, but think about, where do these behaviors, where do these beliefs come from? And write it on a piece of paper. Just write it out, write all of it out. What do I want to release? Who do I want to be? Right? If you don't know who you want to be, then you're always going to be who you were told you had to be, what your DNA tells you that you are. And the goal of ancestral wisdom and healing is to bow and honor where you came from, and remember that you are not the product of your DNA. And so in this bundle, you can get a cloth or even a towel, And you take your piece of paper and you write your beliefs down. You write the things you want to release. You put it in this piece of paper. And then you gather a few things that remind you of your history. It could be something from the Holocaust. It could be a flower. It could be anything. It could be a picture. It could be anything that reminds you of your history. And then in addition, you want to add to it something sweet, something that will release the energy of the past. So I like to add flowers. Sometimes I add pieces of sage right here, pieces of sage, and things that you want to release. And then once you're done with all that, you're going to roll it up and put a little tie around it. And then you're going to go out in nature and you can bury it, you can burn it. I like to take pieces of it. Sometimes I won't take the whole thing because I don't want to really bury it in the mountains, but I'll bury some of that. I'll take pieces of it and I'll bury it as an offering and a reminder that I am not my past. I am my own soul. And so part of living a sacred life is bringing your secrets to life, right? Creating your bundle, writing out what you want to release, remembering where you came from doesn't mean pushing it under the rug. Excuse me. It means remembering and bringing it up and out into the light. What darkness do you need to bring up and out to the light? Once you do that, then you are ready to truly live a sacred life. And the way to live a sacred life is to remember that your body is connected to your soul. Your body is here as a sacred container for your soul. And everybody has an ancestral past, but we all have a soul purpose. And your soul purpose is yours alone. It is not your mother's, it is not your sister's or your grandparents'. It is yours alone. And so when you realize that you came into this world as a little seed, right before you entered the womb, you were told what your soul purpose was. You have a great purpose to live. And so living a sacred life is first acknowledging that you have a sacred purpose that is all your own, right? It is all your own. And that wisdom from the ancestors, the wisdom is that they want you to live your soul purpose. They don't want you to sit in their secrets and their shadows. Some are healed and some are unhealed. And in the next video we're going to talk about healed and unhealed ancestors. But just for this video, for the sake of this video, some ancestors are healed and some are not fully healed. And so finally, to kind of finish this, to create your bundle, to release it to the earth, the next step is to pray. It's a prayer that you offer. Dear Source, dear Spirit, thank you so much for helping me work with my wise and well ancestors because they want me to live my soul purpose. And thanking them for helping you along your way. Asking your wise and well ancestors, those healthy ancestors, they are at your shoulders. They are here. They're standing right behind you, ready to help. But we are humans and we must ask for help. So if you're waiting, the time is now to ask your ancestors for help in order to live a sacred life. So I hope this helped. I'd love to hear your comments and just stay tuned for more. We're going to spend the whole month talking about ancestral wisdom and how to heal with the ancestors. Namaste.